Okay, let's unpack this. Get this. Imagine asking Nobel laureates, world health experts, top CEOs, basic questions about the world. Things like poverty rates, how many kids get vaccines, population shifts.
Uh-huh. Simple stuff, seemingly.
Right. But the data shows they consistently score worse than a chimpanzee, just choosing answers at random.
Worse than random chance. That's the really shocking part.
It's the provocative finding right at the heart of the material we're diving into today.
And it's really the driving force behind Hans Rosling's final major work, Factfulness. 10 reasons we're wrong about the world and why things are better than you think.
He wrote it with his son and daughter-in-law, Ola Rosling and Anna Rosling-Runlund.
Yeah, published posthumously in 2018. Rosling actually called it his last battle in his lifelong mission to fight devastating ignorance. Quite a statement.
And it clearly struck a chord. Became a huge international bestseller, translated into, what, 36 languages? Because it tackles this fundamental problem.
Yeah.
We're swimming in data, yet somehow our collective picture of the world is just systematically wrong. Now, we're tackling this with a specific approach today. We want you to discover a new, in-depth approach to book coverage with this extended summary.
Right. So unlike our previous review, which was more of a focused analysis, this is going to be a comprehensive overview.
We'll be tracing the intellectual roots, the key arguments, and the real-world impact of this subject.
And hey, if you appreciate this expanded format, if you find it helpful, definitely let us know. Your feedback really will help shape future content.
Absolutely.
So our mission here is to figure out why our brains seem almost, well, actively wired to misunderstand the world today.
Rosling argues it's not about being unintelligent or not having access to facts.
No, not at all. He says it's down to 10 specific, overdramatic instincts that consistently twist reality for us.
And the book's ultimate goal, to give you, the listener, the tools for factfulness.
Which he defines as basically the habit of only holding opinions that are backed up by strong facts, not just gut reactions.
Yeah, moving beyond those knee-jerk emotional responses.
And just a quick note on how we're doing this. You are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM for deeper, more dynamic book summaries.
Okay, so to really get Rosling's perspective, we need to look at his background, right? It's pretty unique.
It really is. He wasn't just a medical doctor, spending decades doing global health field work in Africa and Asia.
Important work, obviously.
Hugely important. But he was also, and this is pretty famous, a circus performer. He learned how to swallow swords.
Wait, seriously? A sword swallower and a global health professor? How does that even connect?
Well, that contrast is actually central to this insight. Rosling realized that doing something genuinely dangerous like sword swallowing demands absolute disciplined control over your instinctive reactions.
Okay. If you panic...
You're in big trouble. You have to trust the procedure, the measurements, the technique, not your gut fear.
I see the connection now.
He connects that directly to how we view the world. Our cognitive biases, these instincts he talks about, they're like that fear reaction. We need to control them to avoid making really bad mistakes when we're looking at complex global data.
So that kind of rigorous, almost surgical approach to data, that became really important later with his Gapminder Foundation work.
Exactly. They had these amazing data visualizations, really groundbreaking stuff. But they noticed that audiences, especially the highly educated ones, were still failing basic quizzes about the world.
Huh. So the data itself wasn't the issue.
No, the data was clear. It was the psychological frame, the way people were interpreting it, that was the problem. This failure of intuition, as he saw it.
And that led to one of the book's biggest foundational ideas, right? That the old way of dividing the world is broken.
Completely broken. That old map, the binary split between developed and developing nations,
Yeah.
it's totally obsolete.
And that outdated map feeds right into the first instinct he identifies, the gap instinct.
Yeah, the gap instinct. It's that really strong temptation we have to divide everything into two distinct groups, usually us and them.
Rich versus poor, West versus the rest, that kind of thing. It implies this huge, unbridgeable gap.
But Rosling argues that's just not reality anymore. He replaces that binary model with a framework of 4 income levels. Level 1 is extreme poverty, like less than $2 a day. Level 4 is the highest income, over $32 a day.
Okay, 4 levels instead of 2 clumps.
And here's the crucial part. The vast majority of the world's population today lives in levels 2 and 3, the middle income categories.
Wow, so that gap, we imagine, it's actually mostly filled in the middle now.
Pretty much, yeah. Most people are in the middle. This immediately challenges that conventional wisdom. The gap isn't the main story anymore.
So applying that gap instinct makes us massively overestimate how many people are still stuck down in level 1 in extreme poverty.
Exactly. And because we overestimate the problem at level 1, we fail to see the incredible progress that's been made in lifting billions of people up into levels 2 and 3 over the last few decades.
That distorted view then gets amplified by the next instinct, the negativity instinct.
Ah, yes, negativity. It's a basic survival mechanism, really.
Hmm.
Our brains evolved to notice and remember threats, dangers, bad news much more readily than slow, positive trends.
Okay, that makes evolutionary sense. But doesn't the news just report what's happening? It feels like focusing on problems is just, well, responsible journalism. Is he saying ignore bad news?
No, not ignore it.
Oh.
Acknowledge it,
Yeah.
absolutely. But he argues we need to check the proportions. The issue is selective focus.
Selective focus.
Yeah. If, say, 100 good things happen slowly over time and one dramatic bad thing happens today, what makes the headlines?
The bad thing, obviously.
Right. So the constant drumbeat of crises, disasters, setbacks creates an overall impression that things are getting worse and worse, even when broad, objective measures show incredible long-term improvement.
Like what kind of measures?
Things like global literacy rates going from maybe 10% 2 centuries ago to over 80% now, or child mortality plummeting, or vaccination rates reaching most kids globally. Factfulness means seeing the bad and acknowledging the slow, steady, often undramatic progress happening at the same time.
Okay, I get that. So negativity makes the present seem bad. What about the future?
That brings us to the fear instinct. Fear grabs our attention like nothing else, and it leads us to massively overestimate risks that are rare but frightening.
Like shark attacks or plane crashes getting way more attention than, say, diabetes or car accidents, even though the latter kill far more people.
Exactly that kind of thing. The media naturally focuses on dramatic, scary events, terrorist attacks, pandemics, natural disasters, relative to how often they actually occur compared to more common, mundane threats.
And this constant bombardment messes with our ability to assess risk rationally.
Totally. It interferes with rational risk assessment. We end up pouring resources and attention into addressing low-probability, high-fear events while potentially neglecting bigger, less dramatic, but ultimately more significant threats to well-being.
Okay, so that's gap, negativity, and fear working together to paint this overly dramatic, inaccurate picture. What about how we handle numbers and scale?
Ah, that leads us to the size instinct. This is basically our difficulty in putting large numbers into perspective.
Like, hearing about 1 million refugees or billions in aid, the numbers are so huge they almost become abstract, meaningless.
Precisely. We focus on the big number itself, or maybe one dramatic individual story, rather than the systematic pattern or the proportion.
So what's the factfulness antidote here?
Always look for comparisons and rates. Don't just focus on the absolute number. If you hear about, say, 100 deaths in some incident, the size instinct might make you panic. Factfulness pushes you to ask, 100 out of how many? What's the rate? Is it 100 out of 10,000 people exposed, or 100 out of 10 million? That context, that proportion, is crucial for accurately assessing significance and priorities.
Got it. Always compare. Always look for the rate. What about trends over time?
That's the straight line instinct. This is our lazy assumption that trends will just continue in a straight line forever, either going up or going down.
We just extrapolate linearly.
Yeah, and it leads to some of the most common and most wrong predictions, especially about things like population growth.
That's a huge one. Most people just assume the world population graph goes straight up, exponentially, forever. It feels crowded, right?
It does feel that way, but the data shows a much more nuanced picture. As countries move up the income levels, particularly into levels 2 and 3, and child survival improves, birth rates fall dramatically.
So the growth slows down.
It slows significantly. And Rosling presents this absolutely staggering finding. The number of children in the world, those under 15, is projected to stay pretty much stable at around 2 billion, all the way through the year 2100.
Wait, stable. The number of children isn't growing anymore.
Essentially, yes. The total population will still grow for a while because young adults are living longer, but the number of new children being born each year has leveled off. The growth curve isn't a straight line, it's flattening out. It's more of an S-curve.
That one statistic, 2 billion children staying stable for the rest of the century, that completely flips the script on the population bomb idea.
It really does. It's probably one of those counterintuitive and important facts in the book.
We need to let that sink in for a second.
Factfulness demands we look beyond the straight line. We need to recognize different shapes in data, S-curves, humps, doubling lines, exponential curves. Reality is rarely linear.
Okay, that's a lot to chew on already. Before we dive into the next set of instincts, which seem to focus more on complexity and causes.
Right. If you want to delve deeper into this kind of rational thought and evidence-based analysis, remember to check out Mindful Moments. That's our YouTube channel offering AI book analysis, summaries, and critiques. It's all about inspiring reflection and rational thought.
Good reminder. So moving into the second half of Rosling's instincts, these deal more with how we misunderstand complexity, right? Starting with generalization.
Yes, the generalization instinct. It's our tendency to categorize things, people, countries, cultures, and then assume that everyone or everything within that category shares the same essential characteristics.
Like thinking of Africa as one single place, instead of a massive continent with 54 incredibly diverse countries, cultures, economies.
Exactly that. Or assuming everyone in a particular country thinks or lives the same way. The corrective is pretty simple, but powerful. Always look for diversity within groups. Question your categories.
Rosling points out something interesting here too, right? About cities versus rural areas.
Yeah, he highlights that often the lifestyle and conditions in a major city in a level 2 country might actually have more in common with a city in a level 3 or even level 4 country than with the rural areas just a few miles outside its own city limits. Income level often matters more than the national label.
Okay, so look for differences within groups. What about change over time within those groups?
That brings us to the destiny instinct. This is the idea that innate characteristics, things like culture, religion, geography, national character, determine the destiny of a people or a country, and that this destiny is fixed, that some societies are just inherently stuck.
Like saying, oh, that country will never develop because of its culture.
Precisely. But the book uses historical data to demolish this idea. Rosling points to countries like South Korea or Sweden. If you looked at them 50 or 100 years ago based on their innate characteristics then, you might have concluded they were destined for poverty or stagnation.
But they changed dramatically.
Dramatically and rapidly, once conditions allowed. The data shows societies are incredibly adaptable and can transform within a single generation. Culture changes. Destiny is not fixed. Slow change is still change, and it adds up.
So we need to avoid generalizations and assumptions about destiny. What about finding simple answers?
The single perspective instinct. Our love for simple explanations, single causes, and magic bullet solutions for complex problems.
We like things neat and tidy.
We do. But complex issues like global poverty or public health don't have single causes or single solutions. Trying to find the one thing, whether it's education or aid or technology or governance that will fix everything, is usually misguided.
So reality is messy and interconnected.
Exactly. Health, education, income, governance, they all influence each other. Factfulness means embracing that complexity. It means seeking out multiple perspectives, using a toolbox of different ideas, not just a single hammer.
And when things inevitably go wrong in these complex systems, what happens?
Then the blame instinct often kicks in. This is our strong urge to find someone to point the finger at a villain, a scapegoat, rather than looking for systemic causes or problems within the structure itself.
It's easier to blame a person than a complex system failure.
Much easier, and often more emotionally satisfying. But Rosling argues it's counterproductive. Focusing on blaming individuals distracts us from understanding the underlying systems, institutions, and incentives that might have led to the problem in the first place.
So instead of asking whose fault is this, we should be asking what system allowed this to happen and how can we fix the system?
That's the core idea. Look for causes, not villains. Understand the system.
Okay, just one more instinct left.
The urgency instinct. This is that feeling that we need to act now, immediately, dramatically, when faced with a perceived crisis, often before we've had time to really think it through or look at the data properly.
There's no time to waste. We must do something.
Right. That feeling can be useful in genuine emergencies, like a house fire, but it's often misapplied to complex, long-term problems.
Like climate change or maybe even pandemics.
Those are prime examples. The urgency instinct can lead to panicked, poorly thought-out policies or short-term fixes that don't address the root cause, or might even make things worse. Factfulness requires taking a deep breath, resisting the urge for immediate, dramatic action, insisting on the data, and distinguishing genuine emergencies from problems that require careful, sustained effort, step-by-step progress.
Wow, 10 instincts. That's a comprehensive framework for understanding how we misunderstand the world.
And Rosling ties them all together brilliantly in a story from his own experience, the Congo incident.
Right, this was when he was investigating that disease linked to cassava processing.
Yes, Konzo. He was collecting blood samples to study the disease, and suddenly the villagers became incredibly hostile, convinced he was doing something nefarious, like stealing or selling their blood.
A perfect storm of instincts, you could say.
Absolutely. The needles triggered the fear instinct. They applied the generalization instinct, seeing him as just another outsider exploiting them. The blame instinct made them assume malicious intent, selling blood for profit. And the urgency instinct drove them to surround him and threaten violence right now.
That sounds terrifying. How did he handle that? How did he get out?
It wasn't him, actually. He credits an elderly woman in the village, someone who was illiterate and had no formal education. She managed to calm the crowd down.
How? What did she do?
She didn't argue with data. She just instinctively applied factfulness principles. She started asking questions. She showed curiosity about what Rosling was actually doing, why he needed the samples. She sought understanding instead of jumping to conclusions based on fear and suspicion.
So she basically paused the drama, introduced doubt and curiosity.
Exactly. She temporarily diffused those overdramatic instincts just by asking questions and listening. Rosling uses this powerful story to show that factfulness isn't some high-level academic skill. It's a practical, universally accessible way of thinking.
That's a fantastic anecdote, and it really shows the power of this approach. The book's impact seems to reflect that too.
Immense impact. You had major figures like Bill Gates giving free copies to U.S. college graduates.
I remember that.
And former President Obama praised it for showing what's possible when we work off facts rather than our inherent biases.
It's being used in education now too, right?
Yeah, it's been incorporated into curricula everywhere, from statistics classes to international relations programs. It really validates the idea that we can teach people to develop a more fact-based worldview, and that this can be applied in business, journalism, policy, basically everywhere.
What really comes through for me is this sense of, well, deep but actionable optimism. It's not naive optimism that ignores problems.
No, not at all.
It's optimism grounded in the data, showing the world is actually in a much better state than our instincts usually let us believe, while still fully acknowledging the huge challenges that remain.
That's the core synthesis, I think. Factfulness gives us the mental tools for intellectual humility and curiosity. It shows progress is possible and is happening, even if it's slow.
And maybe recognizing our own limitations is the first step.
That's the final provocative thought, isn't it? Understanding our own ingrained cognitive limitations, realizing that our brains are, in a sense, wired to get the modern world wrong. That realization itself is the necessary, maybe the hardest, first step towards creating real systematic positive change globally.
A really powerful idea to end on. This requires constant vigilance against our own minds.
It does. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, click the link on screen for the in-depth book critique. And of course, subscribe, share, maybe purchase the book via the link, and keep thinking rationally.
See the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.